Howdy, y'all. Welcome to BanjoBenClark.com. I have my longtime friend and banjo mentor, Mr. Alan Munde here. And today we're doing a lesson on backup, but in particular, backup in the key of C, or out of the C position. Sometimes we use C positions and keys that aren't C, and we'll maybe even talk about that. To get us started, let's play a song. And I'm going to give you a bit of a challenge here, Alan. Let's play Old Spinning Wheel. And I know that there's words to it. I don't know the words. But let's give you a couple different scenarios. I'm going to start off playing a guitar solo. So I want you to do backup like you would do behind somebody that's another instrument that's in the spotlight. And then I'm just going to play the chord progression like someone was singing it. So that folks out there, y'all can see just two different approaches to backup in the key of C based on what else is happening in the band.
Sounds good.
Sound good? 1, 2, 3. Beautiful, Alan. I love that old song, huh? Do you play that one much?
Not much, but at jam sessions I'll call it out, just to kind of slow things down and make people be more thoughtful about what they're playing, and just sort of aim at the beautifulness of it.
I think that tempo serves that tune really well too.
Yeah,
and
yes,
it's fun because it gives you time to think about things to play. So when we're talking about playing backup in the key of C, and I do have lots of stuff on the site as far as playing lead in the key of C, and you can just go there and search with the tag key of C and all of those will pop up. But when you think about playing backup in the key of C, what are some initial challenges that you might think of or that you used to think of when you think about the open C position using the standard G tuning versus if you're playing on G?
Sure. Well, first of all, because of the uniqueness of the banjo, you have the fifth string, which is a G. Mm-hmm. So in the key of G, it's the tonic note. But when you go to the key of the C, it becomes the fifth tone. Mm-hmm. And then your chords are C, F, and G. Mm-hmm. So the G fifth string is the fifth tone of the C chord.
It works.
And it's once again the tonic of the G chord.
Yep, so you're good there.
Right, but when you get to F, it becomes a ninth.
Yeah.
So it's you might call it one of the pretty tones, I'll say.
Yeah, and that would make me ask another question. What are some things that you get excited about when you think about playing backup in the key of C and having key of C as that home base?
Right. Well, here's interesting. The key of C is the only key that has G as its dominant chord. Mm-hmm. So when you get to that chord, that's where all your licks are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So now, before in the key of G, D is the dominant chord, mm-hmm. and you're sort of stuck with this sound, and so that's problematic, I think.
Yeah.
But in the key of C, when you get to the dominant,
that's when you feel most home, probably.
Exactly.
That's a banjo player.
It's like, whoa, now I know where I am.
Yeah. So I remember first approaching playing in the key of C, backup and lead, and being intimidated at first until I realized, okay, we've got 2 out of the same 3 chords that I normally play in the key of G. I'm just adding in an F chord. And like you say, so many songs go to that 5 chord toward the end of phrases where you're really have an opportunity to play licks. And now in the key of C, that 5 chord is a G, and that's one thing I had, was a load of G licks.
Exactly.
That I can just pull right over. So it's kind of like, to me, C and G is kind of like Spanish and Portuguese. You know, you can pull just a lot of words come over, and you've got a lot of ammunition going into it, even if you're first starting.
Right, right. And, you know, when you're in C, and to walk down to the G.
We're going to get into that. In our next video segment, we're going to talk about actually rolling in the key of C down low. I want to spend about 10 minutes talking about that. Then I want to talk about going up the neck, playing closed positions, maybe the use of the 5th string if you do fret that at all. And then what I want to do finally is give some real life licks that we can take home and use. So I'm going to just play some progressions for you. You play some of your favorite licks, and then let's learn them, and we'll have the tab there for folks to download.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Good. All right.
Let's talk about rolling back up in the key of C, and what I mean by that primarily is down the neck. We're going to do rolls up the neck. When I think of rolling back up, I'm thinking down the neck. And let me just ask you this, first of all. In what scenarios do you primarily would play down the neck versus going up the neck?
Well, it could be one thing you can think about, especially if you're in a band, but it applies anywhere, is in bluegrass, you have this rhythm going and the banjo's going all the time. And so it kind of makes the whole song sound the same.
Mm-hmm.
So you could pick out, well, I'm going to do the verses down the neck, choruses, I'm going to go up the neck.
Yeah, so it's about diversity there.
Right, right.
Yep.
But you could do it, you know, behind the first verse and do it differently on the second verse. Or, you know, just any way you
Make
want
it interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
It also depends maybe which octave is the lead instrument playing in or singing in. And so maybe if it's a mandolin or something that has a higher register, you would want to go down lower to counter it.
Yeah, that's always you know, everything is an option in a sense.
Yeah.
And I don't even mind personally just even being in the same place that the mandolin or fiddle. There's a lot of people
try to avoid it, where I kind of like it. You know, you get those 2 instruments grinding away, and it just is just that, you know, it's hyper. And I like that. So let me ask you a question I know a lot of people want answered, and that's, let's just say we have a bunch of C chords. As far as rhythm goes, what are you going to do on the banjo to roll? Because we know in the key of G, we've got the forward rolls, the backward rolls, and the utility rolls that we figure out how to make fit into our measures. So I'm just now playing some C. What is your default backup roll over C chord? So one thing I noticed there, and we're going to tab that kind of stuff out.
Right.
But one thing I noticed is primarily you're coming back around to that C note to kind of kick it off.
Well, you know, I always thought bluegrass has sort of a cadence to it. You know, and it's actually, in my sense, what I'm talking about now, now is 2 measures. And so it's this, you know, you have a C. So how I do that is it's 1 measure of a forward roll, then a forward reverse. And it does that.
Okay.
So, and you can go, you know, you can get other little things going.
So you're thinking in 2 measure segments. Primarily,
mostly,
and you know, that's the great thing about banjo too. If you run over, you run into the next measure, you just let it keep going, and you figure out where to regroup later on. Or you play quarter notes or a pinch and reset.
Exactly.
Right? But if you can kind of think about 2 measure blocks, and like you said, fill up a full measure with forward rolls, and then do that forward reverse, and now you've got 2 measures that sound pretty good. And then if you think about those 2 patterns, forward roll, forward reverse, and then you just switch up some of the strings that you're grabbing with that same roll pattern, but you're just, instead of the 2nd string, you throw a 3rd string in there. Now you create some diversity.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good.
you could, play another position of C. It doesn't have to, you can.
Yeah, and you're still doing forward roll,
Right.
forward reverse.
Right,
forward
exactly.
roll, Great. Well, we'll have tab for you there showing you what those forward roll and forward reverse rolls butted up together look like. Okay, so let's talk about other chords because we're going to run into those. And primarily, we're going to have a G chord, an F chord, maybe an A minor, a D minor. Those are the main ones that we're going to use. The equivalent in the key of G would be G, C, D, E minor, and A minor. So now we're just talking about it from a key of C perspective. And of course, we can take the approach to where we do the same two-measure type segments over the chord position. Really easy. Over a G chord, there's no strings being fretted. When you get to an F, you fret the F chord. But to make our banjo back up a little more tasty, we can also walk to those chords and stuff too. And we've got some tab included for you that exemplifies this, that you'll want to download there that shows how you might walk from chord to chord. But let's just talk a little bit about those walks.
All righty. Well, really kind of what you're doing is you're on a chord shape and you're going to do something that starts on one of the tones of the chord for most of the time. And then you're going to play the notes in between to the next chord. So if I looked at each string and if this is C, there's F. At first it looks like there's only one string that you could do that, and I'll start with that one, this one. You'd walk to that note of the chord. But if you think of this C over here, it would come down.
Yeah.
So rather than moving to that, you might walk down like that. Or you don't have to do all of them. You could just do, something like that.
Yeah, work it into a roll.
Right.
But the big point there, and they can see it exemplified in the tab, is that we move on, and this works for any key, we move on from just thinking about playing a couple measures of rolls or for however long that chord lasts, and then the new chord comes along, an F chord, and we go and we make an F shape, and we play rolls over that. Rather, start thinking about where we're going beforehand. Think about what those two chord shapes look like in relative to one another, like where your fingers having to go, and then walking there.
Right.
Using the frets in between. If, like you were saying, on a C chord, that third string is open. On an F chord, it's fretted on the second fret. So what had to change? You went from open to second fret. So if you can walk open, either open to second or open first to second, then that creates some movement that leads the ears.
Right, right. And I always thought that really good backup when you do those sorts of things is, I always think of it as you're playing for an audience full of guitar players who don't know the song. And the only way they can play along with you is by you directing them.
Yeah.
By, playing these walks and things, so they'll hear them coming.
Yeah.
And I think that helps the singer sort of move into the proper harmonic area, and it helps all the musicians you play with. And, it just, you become actually, in a sense, a better band member.
Yeah.
Because you're helping the band move the music along.
Yeah. So let's do just really quick the old spinning wheel again. I'm just going to play the chords, and you demonstrate some of these simple walks, and they'll be able to hear and see what chord we're going to here. And just keep them as simple as you can at first, and so people can actually maybe follow along with what's going on, because those walks can get complex at times and a bit abstract, but
right.
1, 2, 3 to the G chord. Now we're going back to the C. Let's walk to the G. Yeah. Walk back to the C. Now let's walk to the F. To the C. To the G. Back to the G. Beautiful. Now, whenever we're first learning how to walk to these chords, it's natural to think, okay, I'm going to walk from the root to the root to the root. So when you got a C chord, you go to a C chord and you walk to the F or walk down to the G. But what makes it so interesting, what you started doing is, as you mentioned, each chord has 3 possible tones to the chord. It's a triad. It's got the root, the third, and the fifth. And we can choose to walk to any of those, and we can choose to start with any of the 3 in the chord before it.
I think you've got it.
Yeah, I do. Well, I've been listening, right? So, and then that's where it gets interesting, because now you've got 9 different combinations. You have to do the factorial there or whatever.
Right.
I'm gonna get in trouble pulling out my old math. But anyway, I think, you don't really get bored playing backup, or you shouldn't, right? Because
No, it's a real intrigue.
Yeah. So if I'm going from a C chord to an F chord, that F chord has an F, an A, or a C to walk to.
Right.
And I can just choose either one of those targets and start wherever I want.
Right. And also you can listen. For instance, you were doing.
And we coordinated some of those without thinking about it.
Right.
Yeah, without planning it.
I did.
Yeah.
You walked to a G.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
Right.
So they're harmonized walks.
Right. And you don't have to plan it out.
Right.
Necessarily. I mean, you have to kind of rehearse it and get a sense of it. And I kind of expected you to do that, so I did this other thing. And it makes the music sound
that's a bit of counterpoint happening
counterpoint
there.
is the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's
very,
cool.
very good. Okay, in our next video segment, let's go up the neck and just, we're just talking the approach here. And then in another segment, we'll talk about the actual licks and have some tab for those. But let's do the same thing we just did down the neck and talk about the challenges and opportunities we see up the neck.
All right.